can make the difference between winning that first place trophy or coming up just one place shy. And trust me, I know a lot about coming up one place shy. When it comes to truly becoming the best you can be, the difference comes down to inches, not miles. And today we're going to be covering the common mistakes when it comes to posing, because not only have I made these mistakes, I've seen so many others make them. And I would rather you guys not fall into the same pitfalls I have throughout my career and so many others. So today, let's get into it. Let's live and learn and laugh and all that good stuff. Let's go. All right, guys, so one of the most common mistakes I see when guys are doing their front double is they're too bent over, they're crunched too much. They're trying to show their abs, they're trying to show the little bit of muscle that they have, but what happens when we do this is we end up being a lot more unsymmetrical. The torso seems shorter compared to the legs. We lose a lot of size in the lats. Our arms are kind of not showing quite properly as well. So go ahead and reset. Usually what you want to do is have a more neutral stance. You want your chest up. You can still have your abs flexed. They still look fantastic, but now we're a lot more symmetrical from top to bottom. You can see the bicep peak a lot better. He's not casting shadows over himself. Relax for a second and turn to the side and hit this pose again. I like to show people how poses look from the side as well. So you see here, he's got a little bit of a hip tilt to show things off a little bit better for the judges, but he's not completely crunched over anymore. He's sitting a lot more upright, especially through that thoracic spine, and that's what you want. All right, and relax. Oh, that was beautiful. So the second most common mistake I see with guys doing their front double bicep is their arm placement. So you see here, his arm is about at a 90 and his palms are facing forward. Both of these things aren't doing us justice when it comes to showing off the bicep properly. So what you want to do, go ahead and reset. Boom. You really want to twist these arms in. So 1 second, do this. See that versus that, we get a way better peak, more detail throughout the entire bicep. On top of that, flexing the arm more. Flexing the arm more is going to make that bicep appear bigger as well. So these are the two things you want to do when you don't have the best biceps, or even if you do have the best biceps, to show those biceps off the best possible way. Awesome. The third most commonly seen mistake from my point of view is you're trying too hard. You're trying to be too classic, right? Now this was a huge problem when classic first came around, and now I don't see it quite as much, but still it does pop up from time to time. This is still a bodybuilding contest. So reset. You can still have a classic like hip tilt. I definitely still do that myself. A lot of guys still doing it, but you want to kind of tone down these curves and directions you're doing. You want your arms to be a little bit more parallel like he's doing. You want your legs to be a little bit more parallel as well. There's nothing wrong with doing a more classic type of pose, but there is limits to it. And I think this is a very good way to kind of gauge where you are when it comes to classic posing. All right, guys, so now we're going to cover some commonly made mistakes when it comes to chest. And one of the biggest ones I've seen is too many gaps in their physique. And what do I mean by that? We have gaps here and we got gaps here. What we want to do is actually get rid of those gaps. So we're going to bring that closer in. We're going to bring the feet closer together. And this is what you want right here. You want to get rid of these gaps as much as you can. Now, depending on the person, there still may be some small ones here or there, but different ways you can get rid of it is one, obviously by bringing the elbow closer to the abs. Another way is grabbing higher on the arm. So if you don't have the best arm genetics and you got a lot of space up in here, a lot of space up in here, I have some people grab a little bit higher on their forearm. In terms of foot placement, most people are going to find a good place right there with the balls of their foot in between the heel or the arch of their back foot. So take these tips and apply them today. All right, relax. Another commonly made mistake I find with people are they're too squatty, they're too bunched up. Arnold said it best, like you don't want to be scrunched up when you're posing, right? You want to be loud, proud, because we communicate through our body here, and this doesn't seem like a very confident pose looking at it. So I'm gonna have him reset. He's standing a lot taller, chest is up, very nice. When we're going through posing, like I said before, body language is very important. And this is a very good pose, just how you want to hit it. We're still getting a lot of hamstring. A lot of people like to argue that if you squat more, you get a ton more hamstring. That is not the case if you're posing correctly. Hamstrings are looking just fine right here. So make sure you apply this when you're posing. So the next most commonly found mistake I see is this elbow's too high up. Now, a lot of people I've seen and I've listened to, they like to teach this because they say like, oh, the judges are down below, so you want to be angled. But this is not the case. This is not the case from the judge's perspective, and this is just not the case even from what they tell us when we're posing. So what you really want to do is actually level this out. Boom. This actually makes us seem a lot wider, right? For more angle, we're actually getting rid of a lot of this space, but when we're out open, we're actually wider across the board, and it makes our waist look smaller because we're going from wide to tight. And this is the case from the side chest and the side relax. All right. This is actually a pretty cool trick, and a lot of people won't realize it until they start to get leaner and leaner throughout their prep. But you can see right now his leg's pretty flat, but if you press that foot into the ground, you'll start to see some striations start to pop here. So definitely make sure when you're going in your side poses that you're pressing that heel into the ground to show a lot more detail in that quad. Now, just learning with him today, when he presses into the ground, he has a hard time keeping his hamstrings relaxed. Now, this might take a bit of trial and error for different guys, different foot positions, different things like that, but it can be done. You just have to spend more time working on it. But again, press that ball of the foot into the ground. You'll get this detail to pop out more. So next up, we're going to be talking about back double bicep mistakes. And today I got one of my favorites. Guys like to squish their back up, really contract everything in the back to really try to show off more detail. But that is not what we want to do. What we actually want to do is open everything up, gain a bit more width, because the detail will still be there, but will also be a lot wider. We'll show off a lot more of our lats and everything like that. So this is what the judges like to see. This is the correct way to do the pose. So definitely do this next time you're hitting your back double bicep. All right. All right, guys, so another mistake that I see pretty often when it comes to back poses is the foot is too far back. What will happen is when you have your foot too far back, one, a lot of people will experience balance issues. And another thing is just overall, it's just a little bit less symmetrical when it comes to the pose. And one other tiny detail is people tend to have a harder time contracting certain muscles, like the hamstrings, the glutes, things like that. So what you actually want to do is bring your feet a little bit closer together so you have a better base. Now, if you play sports, you would definitely notice already. But if you haven't, I'm here to teach you today. So typically what you want to have is something like a heel to toe type of thing. And width-wise, you want to be about shoulder width apart. If you do that, you'll typically find that you're a little bit more balanced. On top of that, you want to put a decent amount of your weight onto that flat foot. But once you do that, we'll find that a lot more symmetrical throughout the quads. The balance is a lot better. For most people, they have an easier time contracting their hamstrings, their glutes, and everything in between. And yeah, give this a try. The third most commonly found mistake that I see when it comes to the back double bicep is hamstring control or lack thereof. Now, there's a couple different things that I use to make sure that, one, that the hamstring isn't contracted. You know, we can always go by feel, but we can also go by a visual cue. So real quick, I want you to come up here and actually flex that hamstring. And that right there will let you know how much detail that person will have in the hamstring because they're actually flexing it right then and there. So for a lot of people, it's just not as simple as like, oh, let me flex it. They don't have the mind-muscle connection built up quite yet. So there are a couple of different exercises we can do on top of just practicing it. Like normally, we can also go ahead and hit it real quick. You can always press into something. So press into there we go, as hard as you can. There we go. And when you have someone here, you can press against their against their hand. Or the alternative is, relax. You can turn towards a wall and press into that wall if you don't have someone. And you will feel it light up like nothing else. I promise you. It'll wake it up real quick. You do that, I would say hold it for maybe 30 seconds at a time, 3-4 rounds. And I would do it daily. It's not going to affect your training. It's not going to make anything worse. But that daily practice will really come in handy when it comes to stage time. All right, guys, so next up, we got the most common mistakes when it comes to ab and thighs. Now, one of the most common things I find a lot of times is people are too far crunched over. Again, when you're too far crunched over, it throws off your symmetry. You cast a lot of shadows so that judges aren't quite able to see your physique, and it just looks ugly. So reset. This is how you kind of want to do the shot right here. You want to think about more of I would say crunch as opposed to like a sit-up. So you still want to contract everything here as tightly as you can without bending over too much. So typically this is how you want to be. If you can, keep your chin up as much as possible. You want your lats to flat out as much as possible. And this is kind of how you want it to look. All right, so another common mistake that I see a lot when it comes to ab and thigh are people leaning too far away from the judges. Things that are further away from the eye appear smaller. So if the judge's eyes are here and your upper body's here, you're gonna appear smaller up top. So typically, reset. And actually turn to the side. You want to be a lot more neutral when it comes to your ab and thigh pose. Not too far back. There you go. Not too far back like that. And also come forward. Not too far crunched forward, but more neutral. This is pretty much going to be your spot when it comes to ab and thigh poses. Thank you. Next up, when it comes to ab and thigh poses, a common mistake that I see are people doing a hip thrust in this pose. The hips are too far forward. And what happens when your hips are too far forward is you lose detail all throughout your upper legs because a stretched muscle is a very hard muscle to contract. So we're gonna turn sideways again, give you guys a side view. So his hips are pushed forward here. What he actually wants to do is round that back out, just like that. This is the angle you want your hips, so either neutral or even a little bit further back. And what happens is, rotate back forward, flex everything. You'll get a lot more detail in the upper thighs here. A lot of people will get a lot more detail in the sartorius muscles. That muscle that runs all the way down from the knee up into that upper thigh when you change up that hip position. So if you guys are having trouble keeping the upper legs tight, the sartorius tight, that is a great cue for you. All right, guys, so hopefully this video was helpful. Some of the most commonly found mistakes, at least from my point of view. And if you guys are looking for posing help, my posing course, or anything when it comes to posing, please look down in the description. And until next time, peace.